Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be doing one of the projects that is a part of the new responsive web design course on FreeCodeCamp. The project is called Learn Typography by Building a Nutrition Label. At the end of it we should have something that looks similar to this. And this is a preview of what it looks like, so let's get started. Step 1. We've provided the basic HTML boilerplate for you. Create a H1 element within your body and give it the text Nutrition Facts. Step 2. Below your H1 element, add a P element with the text 8 servings per container. Within your head element, add a link element with a real attribute set to style sheet and an href attribute set to this link. This will import the Open Sans font family with the font weight values 400, 700, and 800. Also add a link element to link your style CSS. Create a body selector and give it the font family set to Open Sans with a fallback of sans serif. Remember that the fonts with the spaces in the name must be wrapped in quotes for CSS. The font is a bit too small. Create an HTML selector and set the font to have a size of 16 pixels. Wrap your H1 and P elements in a div element and give that div a class attribute set to label. Borders can be used to group and prioritize content. Create a class label selector and give it a border set to 2 pixels, solid and black. Good use of white space can bring focus to important elements of your page and help guide your user's eyes through your text. Give your class label selector a width property set to 270 pixels. Give your class label selector a margin property set to 20 pixels auto and a padding property set to 0.7 pixels. If you inspect your class label element with your browser's developer tools, you may notice that it's actually 288 pixels wide instead of 270. This is because by default the browser includes the border and padding when determining an element's size. To solve this, reset box model by giving it a box sizing property. Remember that the use of the H1 and H2 and similar tags determine the semantic structure of your HTML. However, you can adjust the CSS of these elements to control the visual flow and hierarchy. Create a H1 rule and set the font weight property to 800. This will make your H1 text border. Give your H1 selector a text-align property of center. Fine-tune the placement of your H1 by giving it a top and bottom margin of -4 px and a left and right margin of 0. Create a piece selector and remove all the margins. Lines can help separate and group important content, especially when the space is limited. Create a div element below your H1 element and give it a class attribute set to divider. Create a selector for your new class divider and set the border bottom property to 1 pixel solid with a color of 888989. It should not have any left or right margin. So anytime you're putting a margin, this 2px will be for your top and bottom, and then your 0 will be for your left and right. The letter spacing property can be used to adjust the space between each character of text and an element. Give your H1 selector a letter spacing property set to 0.15 pixels to space them out a bit more. Nutrition labels have a lot of bold text to draw attention to important information. Rather than targeting each element that needs to be bold, it is more efficient to use a class to apply the bold styling to every element. Give your second P element a class attribute set to bold. Your new class does not have any styling yet. Create a class bold selector and give it a font weight property set to 800 to make the text bold. Go ahead and remove the font weight property from your H1 selector as well. Give your H1 element a class attribute set to bold. This will make the text bold again. Horizontal spacing between equally important elements can increase the readability of your text. Wrap the text 2/3 cup 55 grams in a span element. Okay. Now we can add a horizontal spacing using flex. In your P selector, add a display property and set it to flex, and to justify content, set the space between. Wrap everything within the class label element and a new header element. Now update your H1 selector to be header H1 to specifically target your H1 element within your new header. Create a new div element below your header and give it a class attribute of divider large. Create a class large selector and give it a height property of 10 pixels, and also create a large and medium selector and set the background color to black. So large, you may notice there's still a small border at the bottom of your class large element. To reset this, give your large comma medium selector a border property set to 0. Note the medium class will be utilized in step 37 for thinner bars of the nutrition label. Create a new div below your large element and give it a class attribute of calories info. Within your calories info element, create a div element, give it a, okay, so we'll do this. Within your new div, create a H2 element with the text amount per serving and give it a class attribute set to bold small text. So we'll do H2, H2, and we'll do a class of bold small text, and inside of it we needed to say amount per serving. The REM unit stands for root M and is relative to the font size of the HTML element. Create a class small text selector and set the font size to 0.85 REM, which would calculate to roughly 13.6 pixels. Remember that you set your HTML to have a font size of 16 pixels. Create a calories info H2 selector and remove all the margins. Below your small text class selector element, create a new P element with the text calories. Also below the left container element, create a new span element with the text 230. So like it says, below your small text element, create a new P element with the text calories. Also below your left container element, so this is our left container element, which is a div, and they want this below it, create a new span element. So your div ends here, so it has to be below it right here with the text 230. Create a new calorie info selector. Give it a display, flex, justify, content, space between, and align items property to flex end. Create a new left container P, left container P, setting the top and bottom margins to -5 and the left and right to -2. So it'll be -5 px and -2 px. Set the font size to 2 em. Create a calories info span, set its font size to 2.4 and a font weight to 700. Typography is often more art than science. You may have to tweak things like alignment until it looks correct. Give your calories info span selector a margin of -7 and -2. This will shift your 230 text into place. Below your calories info element, add a div with a class divider medium. Create a medium selector and give it a height property of 5 pixels. Create a new div below your medium element and give it a class attribute of daily value small text. Within this new div, add a P element. And set the class to bold right. And they want this text on the inside. Okay, the text should be aligned to the right. Create a right selector and use the justify content property to do it. Use your existing divider element as an example to add a new divider after the P element. After your last divider element, create a P element and give it the text total fat 8 grams 10%. Wrap the total fat in a span. With a class set to bold. Wrap the 10% in another span. With the class set to bold. Also wrap the words total fat 8 grams in an additional span element for alignment. Below your element with the total fat text, create a new P element with the text saturated fat 1 gram 5%. Wrap the 5% in a span in a class of bold. In this case, this is enough to align the percentage by 5%. This new P element will need to be indented. Give it a class set to indent. In the new indent selector, give it a margin left property of 1 EM. Create a daily value P selector and target all of your P elements in the daily value selection. Give this new selector a border bottom of 1 pixel solid. Okay. the bottom borders under your daily value, okay, and saturated elements do not extend the full width. Add a no divider to the class for these two elements. Okay, the not pseudo selector can be used to select all elements that do not match the given CSS rule. The above selects all div elements with an ID of example. Modify your selector to exclude. Okay. Now that you have to add separate dividers below your no divider elements, your first new no divider elements has a divider after it. Create another divider after your second no divider element. After your last divider, create another P element with the text trans fat 0 grams. Italicize the word trans by wrapping it in an I element. Give the new P element a class attribute set to indent no divider. Wrap the trans fat 0 grams in a span element for alignment. So we did everything it asks. We created a new P element. We put trans fat 0 grams inside. We wrapped the word trans in the I element, as you can see. We gave the new P element the class attribute of indent. No divider. We wrapped the trans fat 0 grams from here till the end and a span element for alignment, which brings it all back together. Create another divider after your last P element. After your last divider, create a new P element with the text cholesterol 0 milligrams 0%. wrap the text cholesterol in a span element and give that span element the class attribute set to bold. Wrap the text 0% in another span element with the class set to bold. Also wrap cholesterol 0 milligrams in an additional span element for alignment. So, do P and put 0. Do cholesterol 0 milligrams, 0% inside. We'll wrap the text cholesterol in a span. Give the span a class element or a class attribute of bold. And then we need to wrap the text 0% in another span. With a class set to bold as well. Also wrap cholesterol 0 milligrams in an additional span for alignment. So cholesterol 0 milligrams. So we'll go here, add another span, and after 0 milligrams, put our closing tag. Oh, your first span should have a class attribute set to bold. What did we do wrong? Oh, this one needs to go in front of this one, I think. There we go. Below your last P element, create another P element with the text sodium 160 milligrams, 7%. Wrap the sodium in a span with a class attribute set to bold. Wrap the text sodium, okay, wrap 7% in another span. Span with a class set to bold as well. Also add an additional span element around sodium 160 milligrams. Add another P element with the text total carbohydrate 3713. Like before, use span elements to make the text total carbohydrate and 13% bold. So let's start with that. So span element to make total carbohydrate and 13% bold. So we got this bold and we got this bold. Add an additional span to wrap the whole text to have it aligned to the left and 13% to the right. Oh, okay. So add an additional span to cover total carbohydrate and 37 grams. And 13% to the right. Okay, let's see if that's good. Yes. Below your last P element, add another P element with the text dietary fiber, 4 grams. Give the P element a class necessary to indent it and remove the dividing border. Then create a divider below the P element. Create another P element after your last divider and give it the text total sugar 12 grams. Assign the P element a class values necessary to indent it and to remove the bottom border. Then create another divider below your P element. The advantage of creating these dividers is that you can apply specific classes to style them individually. Add a double indent to the class for your last divider. Create a double indent selector and give it a margin left 2 EM. Below your double indent element, add a new P element with the text Your new P element should also be double indented and have no bottom border. Use the span to make it 20% bold and right aligned. Then create a new divider. Okay, so use a span to make the 20% bold and right aligned. After your last divider, create another P element with the text protein 3 grams. Use the necessary classes to remove the bottom border, add a span to make the protein bold, then create a large divider. Create another P element below your large divider and give it this text. So let's start with that. The P element contains only text. You can wrap the percentage in a span element so that it is considered a separate entity from the rest of the text and it's moved to the right. Create another P element and give it the text calcium 260 milligrams 20%. Align it 20% to the right. Okay, let's start with that. Oh, align 20% to the right, sorry. Okay. Below that, create another P element with the text iron, aligning the 45% to the right. Create a final P element for your daily value section. Give it the text potassium 200 and 350 milligrams, 6%. Align the 6% to the right and remove the bottom border of the P element. Add a medium divider after your daily value element. Below that new divider, create a P element with the class attribute set to note. Give the P element the following text. Class set to note, and then put that text inside. Create a note selector, font size set to 0.6 rem, and top and bottom margins set to 5 pixels. And 0 for left and right. Let's see if this works. There we go. Give the note selector a left and right padding of 8, removing the top and bottom padding. And a text indent property of -8 pixels. And with these last changes, your label is complete. Let's see if we did everything correctly. Awesome. Sweet. Yeah, looks perfect. So with that last step, guys, this project is done. I hope I was able to show you step by step how to do it. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment. If this helped you out in any way, please give it a thumbs up. I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you in the next challenge. Have a great day.